6 months ago today, Fallout 76 was released. At launch, the game had a lot of issues. In all likelihood, it probably would have went down as being one of the worst AAA game releases of the past few years, but then Anthem came out. And naturally during that time, as you saw issue after issue, controversy after controversy, a lot of people's views around this game were shaped as just being negative. They viewed the game in a bad light, stopped playing it, tried to get a refund, and kind of just moved on with things. But now as we sit almost 6 months later, Fallout 76 has received numerous updates. The first DLC wave, known as Wild Appalachia, is almost complete. So where does the game stand today? What kind of evolution did it go through over those 6 months? Is it worth playing again for those who originally passed it up, or is it still in as bad of a shape as it was originally? In this video, I'm gonna pretty much talk about all of that, or at least my perspective on it as I've been covering the game for the entirety of that time. If you guys do enjoy the content, you can leave a like or subscribe. But either way, looking at Fallout 76 and really its evolution with Bethesda over the past 6 months, there's been some interesting changes. The first 2 months following release really to me seem like the low point, and I think Bethesda to some degree definitely learned from that. As we hit the end of 2018 and entered into 2019, we saw really large patches containing a ton of bug fixes. As well as now we actually do have weekly articles describing what they plan to do with the game or what kind of new additions we should expect, and community managers for this game are extremely active. They almost never respond to genuinely controversial topics, but as far as just, hey, please add this, or hey, this is broken, you typically will see a response, which does inspire confidence that Bethesda are listening, at least to some degree. But with that being said, let's then talk about the bugs of Fallout 76. At release, this was without a doubt one of the biggest and most pressing issues, and to make a long story short, since release there have been several large-scale updates bringing hundreds of bug fixes, meaning that many of the bugs that were carried over from Fallout 4, or even just some of the larger game-breaking bugs, have been resolved. Things definitely aren't perfect, but the bugs you encounter in Fallout 76 now, 6 months later, are minor and typically not that big of a deal. Except in the category of kind of making the game multiplayer, it seems pretty evident that with Fallout 76, there are many lingering issues that are kind of just a byproduct of taking a fundamentally single-player game and engine and adding multiplayer to that. And over the past 6 months, Bethesda has had a lot more difficulty in handling these bugs compared to the otherwise traditional ones. Things like server stability is just hit or miss. After some updates, it's great and you barely crash at all. After other updates, you are getting consistent crashes seemingly out of nowhere. This has been a constant back and forth over that 6-month window, and it seems like one of those things Bethesda has yet to truly figure out or totally resolve. You also do have the issue of exploits and duping. During the early days of Fallout 76, duping was widespread, and Bethesda wasn't really addressing it. I think a big chunk of that was they were focusing on getting rid of some of the other bugs, and although over the past 3 months or so, Bethesda has implemented several systems to restrict duping, banned many of the dupers, a lot of those originally duped items, some of the really high tier and good legendary items, are still found all throughout normal users' accounts. They probably bought them from dupers, and as a result of that, there's just a lot of people that have really overpowered weapons in this game. But even further, a couple of new duping glitches have actually popped up over the past week or so it's going to be interesting to see how Bethesda addresses this. It's an issue that lay dormant for a while, but at the same time it was never truly gone, and you definitely do see the effects of it. Outside of just the technical changes to this game, we also do have the DLC. Fallout 76's first DLC wave was Wild Appalachia, and this added in a ton of content. There were new quest lines added in with this, new events that you could complete in-game, several new mechanics and systems that actually really changed the dynamic of the game. We still do technically have a couple weeks left of this, although for the most part, it all is implemented. We got new story-driven quest lines that have almost a mysterious feel, where you're acting like a detective. Other quest lines that just add in a bunch of content. There's not really much story, but just a bunch of things to do with tangible rewards at the end, but other things like new crafting tables, player trading, new events and creatures for you to find and discover. Over the release of this questline, it really felt like Bethesda started to find their groove with Fallout 76. And if you're one of those people that bought the game already, there is hours upon hours of new and free content for you to explore and definitely enjoy. There's a lot of quality stuff in there. but I would say that's really just if you liked the game to begin with. Although certain features do introduce dramatic change, player vending machines added in a whole new level of community interaction where you could just go to other people's camps and talk to them, check out their designs. Although outside of that, it feels like a lot of the other things are just kind of in line with everything else in the game. If you enjoyed the way the quests were told in Fallout 76 through holotapes, terminals, and things like that, you'll like the new content, but it's not like Bethesda up and added in human NPCs. The game still does have grindy portions, especially at the endgame. It really doesn't have an endgame outside of just grinding or farming legendaries. And I would argue, even though the new DLC is really cool and a lot of fun, it's not changing anything. It's more of the same content. So if you've finished all of the old content, you'll have some new things to do, but if you're looking for something different, that isn't this. And that's certainly not a bad thing. Many of the new stories or adventures you could go on in Fallout 76 are some of the most memorable I've had of any Fallout game. Although if you were someone that was particularly hung up about the lack of human NPCs or really the lack of dialogue choices, you probably still wouldn't enjoy this. It still does have that same almost passive nature of storytelling, where you're not super involved in what's actively happening, but just consuming what has happened already. Although certain other quests, events, or even gameplay aspects definitely are extremely enjoyable when playing with another person. Fallout 76, I think, has almost always been fun cooperatively, and completing a lot of the new DLC with a friend is a great way to experience it. The one thing that can be viewed as slightly different is the new survival mode. It has a PvP focus, which pretty much nothing else in the game does, but the new survival mode also has a lot of issues. There's a spawn camping issue. A lot of players you encounter might just one-shot you because they have those aforementioned duped or really god-tier weapons. You also do have the growth or evolution of the atomic shop. I don't think it's nearly as important as some of the other things, and mostly the atomic shop largely remains the same. We see almost weekly updates to this. You can definitely tell with a lot of these DLCs, a lot of content that's sold through the atomic shop probably would have been free if you had to pay for the DLC. Even further, Bethesda at one point said it would be cosmetic only. Since then, it has actually gotten non-cosmetic items and may get more in the future. Otherwise though, the pricing model, even though there's been minor fluctuations, is largely the same. It's fairly expensive to make purchases off of this. And overall, I would say Fallout 76's last 6 months have been an interesting one. Most of the bugs are gone now. The game is in a pretty good state, but at the same time, there certainly are other issues with the game and gameplay itself. I still wouldn't call it a perfect game. I would call it without a doubt an improved game, even a massively improved game. At the same time though, there is definitely a long road ahead. Fallout 76 isn't for everyone. It's not even for all of the Fallout fans. There are certain features that are staples of previous games that are not in this one and may never come. The past 6 months hasn't really changed that, but I think over those 6 months, Fallout 76 has found itself a bit more. The social aspects are improved, the sense of community is higher now than it ever has been before, and certainly is a game that you can purchase at a reasonable price and get a lot of hours of enjoyment out of. So yeah, that's my take on Fallout 76 after 6 months and my 6 months of covering it. Let me know in the comments down below what's your perspective on the game now that it actually has been out for 6 months. But with all that being said, as always again, I thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.